Your Serene Highness, Mr. Bousou, dear participants, it's a pleasure for us to be here, the UN Office on Sport for Development and Peace. As you mentioned, Pascal, this office was created by the Kofi Annan some 6-7 years ago, and exactly because it was seen by the United Nations that sport has this very important convening power. It has this very important power to teach, to give good examples. And I think Mr. Dossal also in his introductory remarks yesterday mentioned that UN places great importance on the issue of sport, and it is supported by Kofi Annan at that time, and it is supported by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon now. So what does UN actually do in the context of sport? Well, our office, the UN Office on Sport for Development and Peace, we are there as an advocate, as a facilitator, as a representative. You could very much say that our office is there as the gateway to the UN system towards the outside world in order to bring the sports world in and use the values of sport. But I would like to maybe also on a more general level try to mention what UN is doing in this context, and in that respect try to divide it between macro initiatives or examples and micro initiatives. Mr. Lemke mentioned the Olympic Truce Resolution, which was adopted recently in New York at the General Assembly. And I think it's very significant that this is one of the UN resolutions with the widest support amongst the UN member states. More than 130 countries at the when the last resolution was passed actually supported this event. That is very significant. But even more so, it is significant that it doesn't only rest a symbolic event, that it doesn't only has symbolic value. And and I will come back to what the two previous speakers have said, it is important here that governments take responsibility, that they take responsibility to really respect what they are adopting in the resolution, but also in the day-to-day work, that they take responsibility to use sport as a mainstream tool. UN and our office and many of the UN agencies are providing a platform that governments can use, whether at international level or at national level. And governments have to integrate and have to use this possibility. Many governments do this, and many governments use the values of sport, but there are also many governments around the world that still has to have their, if I can say it like that, their eyes opened to the possibilities of using sport. And there, I think there is a very big responsibility of those governments that already have experienced what sport can do, that already have good practices to share that with everybody else. In this context, there are many working environments within UN, in other intergovernmental bodies. In this context, that is why the Secretary General has accepted that within our office we establish the Sport for Development and Peace International Working Group that will focus on a number of the issues in relation to sport, development and peace. And in that context, there will also be a specific working group on sport and peace where we would encourage all of you that are around the table here, primarily governments, to participate, to share good practices, to raise issues that can be addressed, but also, and that is the responsibility, I think, of the sporting world, for the sporting world, for NGOs, for federations to participate, for civil society organizations, for academics to participate. Because per se, UN is not an expert in using sport. In many of the projects that UN is implementing around the world, they are partnering up with NGOs, with sporting federations. And we need those because UN sitting behind a desk sometimes is not the expert in doing everything. You, the sporting federations, you, the NGOs, has the expertise on the ground implementation. And that is why also what the two previous speakers said, the partnership aspect is important. And for the sustainability, the partnership aspect is important to involve all the partners. And that includes governments. It doesn't help that an international organization or federation comes in and implements a project and leaves after 2, 3, 4 years. There has to be buy-in from all the players that are important, and that is local authorities, governments, sports federation, NGO, and the international organizations. UN also uses sport and the convening power of sport, for instance, in their goodwill ambassadors. And I very much congratulate Peace and Sport also on their use of the ambassador role. It is important that there are some role models for youth. This is what youth is looking up to, and we can use this very positively. But I would also like to just give a word of warning. All international sports stars must also take responsibility themselves of acting as role models. It is no good use that international sports stars live in excess and present a lifestyle that is not something that young people and children can live up to. They have to take their own responsibility. UN is very proud. We are very proud of our goodwill ambassadors, of our messengers for peace. But this message has to be also sent out to all the international sports stars. I think that is important. And there is a responsibility for the sports clubs, for the agents, also to work together on this and to emphasize this right from the start when young sports stars get into the possibility of earning a lot of money. UN is using, in the micro level, sport in a lot of contexts. Peacekeepers use sport in order to get closer to the community. UNRWA, the UN organization in the Middle East, use sport extensively. Each year they organize the summer camps in Gaza, getting 250,000 kids together and organizing sports programs for these kids during the summer in order to activate them, in order for them not to get into trouble. There is enough trouble in the area already, and therefore UN has seen this possibility. I think it's a tremendous effort. UNICEF uses sports lastly. An example that could be used to a much further, I think, level is the International Day of Peace on the 21st of September. And there you may know that there is the organization Peace One Day that last year organized football matches in all 192 UN member states. I think that is also a tremendous effort and a tremendous symbolic value of what peace actually can do. And we, for the future, would like very much to work together with them. So just rounding off, UN is interested in using sport. We believe in the use of sport, but we need partnerships. Again, governments, sports federations, NGOs are important. We need to work together around the table on this. And we need to create sustainability from this. And finally, I would like to emphasize again, the sporting world, I think, has a tremendous responsibility and a tremendous opportunity here to impact the world of sport, or the world of peace, the world of development, with the message that they can send. It is a tremendous message, and it is a message that is understood all around the world. Thank you.